nigga.
Hey.
Fuck like, fuck is you talking about? Stay over there. She's not speaking for you. You got a bum ass A-boy jacket that came out in 1990. Bro, you got a fucking that's her hat. Oh, that you need to get your money at. That's Nike boots. That's this one. Just get your money up. Simple. I'm done. Monkey's done. Get your money up. Alright? Alright? You want to know how shoes I got on with Steve Adams on?
No, nobody wants Steve Adams no more.
What the fuck? Why you stuck to that fucking bitch? I'm
You petty as hell. You can't even afford to get along. Nobody watching you. What you doing that for? I don't do when you get mad.
You sound stupid.
Fucking dirty bitch.
You sound
You
know me?
Hello, hello, hello. It is now December 29th, 2024. That's Sunday. And you're too damn nice. I think that's going to be the title of my video. And so, as somebody once told me several years ago, a coworker of mine, sometimes you've got to be a New York asshole. Let's see, watch my drive in here for a moment. But yeah, if you're not successful, if people are getting ahead but you're not, if let's see here, if you're getting walked on, taken advantage of, treated like crap, you know, people don't show you respect, you know, kind of like Rodney Dangerfield, I don't get no respect, then that's because you're too damn nice. And the solution to that is that sometimes you've got to be a New York asshole. So let me explain. In fact, I'll tell the story and then give some examples of how to be a New York asshole so you can get ahead in life and be better and get what you want. So many years ago, I was sent by my employer at the time, Lockheed Martin, out to work in Virginia, Northern Virginia, at Fort Belvoir, and along with a coworker of mine, to help with this program that was going on out there. And so one day during our lunch break, my coworker Jim and I went over to the Springfield Mall, and because it was in Springfield, Virginia, that's where we were working. And actually, if you know the area where, for those people who may have been out to Virginia at one point in their lives, if you've ever been to the home of George Washington on Mount Vernon, Fort Belvoir is just a few miles away from that. It's literally like down the road from Mount Vernon, where George Washington's estate still is, and that was an interesting place to go visit. But and the Springfield Mall is just a couple of miles away from that. So Jim and I were out at the Springfield Mall for our lunch break. We had, I think it was like an hour lunch break, something like that. And we were walking, we walked in the entrance, and as we were walking down the hall, we walked past this counter where there was this guy standing behind the counter, and he was selling like all these products. I don't know if they were skincare products or what they were, I don't remember. But as Jim and I are walking by and we're talking to each other, this guy runs out from behind the counter and like gets in front of Jim and I, and he's walking backwards, like interrupting us and, you know, trying, you know, getting in our way and trying to push his products. And I, you know, and so we're walking, and I said, we're not interested. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. We're not interested. Well, this guy wouldn't, he would not take no for an answer. He wouldn't get the hint that Jim and I were not interested in what he was selling. And on top of that, we had limited time, so we had to go. We were heading to the food court there to go get our lunch, have lunch, and then we had to head back to the base. And actually, you know, we had to be back on base, back in the compound and everything, you know, within an hour. So we didn't have time for this guy. So the guy just kept following us down the hall and kept bugging us, harassing us. And I said, not interested. Thank you very much. You know, and this is around Christmas time, actually. And so after I said that maybe 3 or 4 times, you know, and I was real nice and polite, Jim just suddenly became real hostile, not with me, but with that guy, got in his face, told him to go the F away, you know, screamed at him, we're not interested, get the fucking hint, go away, you know, get the F out of here. And so the guy, like, shocked, it's like, okay, you know, and he, because Jim was acting all hostile and everything. And it was really funny. I chuckle about it when I think about it to this day. So then we start walking again, and as we're walking away towards the food court, he turns to me and says, Steve, sometimes you just got to be a New York asshole. And then he was explaining to me that, you know, sometimes you just got to be a New York asshole, and if you're really nice, people consider that a sign of weakness and that you're a mark, you know, an easy target. And, you know, if you're too nice, if you're too polite. And I got to thinking about that. And, you know, Jim was right. Jim was right. And I actually had a reminder of that a couple of months later when I was back out at Buckley Air Force Base. Buckley, yeah. It's now Space Force Base in Colorado. I was out there for a while. And had some people come down to my office, where at the time I was in charge of the shipping and receiving and a whole bunch of other stuff. And we had this thing where a lot of people, a lot of customers, other contractors or government customers would come down, and they would demand their stuff immediately, or, you know, they came down to push me around and push the other people on the account. I guess you'd call it the account. The other crew members around and all that, thinking that that was the way to get what they want. Basically, they were bullies. That's the best way to put it. And so there was this guy, and Brad, trying to think of his name, but anyways, is Brad Bodden. And I guess he was used to just pushing people around because he was like a manager or a lead on in the maintenance crew. And so he came down there and he was pushing me, telling me to do this and that, and saying, I need this now, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, Brad, I do not have that. It's not been processed yet. I mean, he just kept pushing. And so, I remembered what Jim had said when we were in Virginia. And I said, Brad, no matter how many times you try to push me or bully me, I'm telling you, you can't have it now because it hasn't been processed yet. I've got this mountain of other work to do. You're just going to have to wait. And then he even threatened me. He was saying he was going to go to the management and all that. And I said, well, you go right ahead, but it just can't be done. And they're going to tell you the same thing. And so he storms off, and he was yelling at me. So I yelled back at him. And so he storms off, and, so then he goes and tells my manager at the time, trying to get me in trouble because I could not do what he wanted. I just simply couldn't do it. It wasn't just that I didn't want to. I couldn't. So, but my manager actually backed me up in that particular case. And he comes down to the office and he's laughing. And he's like, and some of the other guys on the crew who witnessed our little altercation there in the office were saying, damn, way to put your foot down, Steve. And I'm like, well, I wasn't trying to put my foot down. It's just that idiot wouldn't get it through his thick head that I couldn't actually do what he wanted me to do. And no amount of bullying and demanding and throwing a temper tantrum like a child was going to be able to change that and get me to do what he wanted. I need to take this off. This is hotter than crap out here in the desert. But anyways, excuse me one moment. Gonna have to take this off. About to go into the gym anyways. So he throws a temper tantrum, trying to bully me. Didn't work. Went down to the office. The manager comes down, and basically he's laughing. The manager is. The other guy, Jim, another guy by the name of Jim, comes down. He's laughing. And he basically says, yeah, sometimes, Steve, you just got to be a prick. And he's like, so you do what you got to do. And I'm like, don't worry about that. So Brad had to wait. I know it killed his ego, but too damn bad. He had to wait for a couple of days to get his stuff. So he was one of those people that would order stuff. He'd be in charge of a project, some kind of a construction project or whatever, there at the base. And he would either order the wrong thing and then have to have the stuff sent back, which would delay the project, or he would wait till the last minute, order a whole bunch of crap, and then expect it to be immediately processed and sent to him, priority, basically. He was one of those people that his lack of preparation and his lack of competence, he thought would become your emergency. And I basically told him that. I said, your incompetence and lack of preparation does not constitute an emergency on my part. So you get it when you get it. And that really pissed him off. But I didn't care. And other people were laughing and all that. And so, but I remembered from that day when we were out in Virginia where Jim told me, this other guy, a coworker of mine who had gone out there with me for a month, sometimes you got to be a New York asshole. And the Jim who told me that was actually from New Jersey. And it's no secret that in a lot of cases, New Jerseyans and New Yorkers do not like each other. It's kind of a rivalry thing they've got going on there. And I've been to New York and New Jersey. And I could say that for the most part, New Yorkers are assholes. Not all of them, but mostly New Yorkers in Manhattan, in New York City, in the 5 boroughs and all that. Because they live in a giant city and they basically have to compete for everything. And when you're in that kind of environment, you kind of have to be an asshole. Perfect example of that is the movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, where I don't know if any of y'all have seen that, but if you haven't, you should watch it. It's pretty damn funny with, what's his name? John Candy and Steve Martin. And rest in peace, John Candy, who's one of the greats. The best damn shower curtain salesman, or shower curtain ring salesman on the East Coast. But at the very beginning of the movie, Steve Martin's character is trying to get home for Christmas. I think it's Christmas or Thanksgiving, one of the holidays, but I'm pretty sure it's Christmas. And so he's in New York City, and he hails a cab. And so just as the cab pulls up, he goes up to the driver's side window, or the passenger side window, and is talking to the cabbie. Well, here comes John Candy as Steve Martin is talking to the cabbie. John Candy comes up, puts his luggage into the trunk of the cab, and then jumps in the back of the cab, locks the door, and tells the cabbie to take him to, I think it's the JFK airport, I think is where he wanted to go. Same airport that Steve Martin wanted to go to. So the cabbie's like, all right. So right in the middle of Steve Martin saying something to the cabbie's like, all right, and he takes off. And Steve Martin's like, hey, asshole, that's my cab. So he's like running down the, I think it was Broadway or something like that. As the cab is pulling away, and John Candy's looking back like, like he's all nervous and everything, but kind of like laughing and shit. Because basically what John Candy did he was a New York asshole. While Steve Martin was talking to the cabbie, John Candy just came up, threw his luggage in the back, jumped in the back seat, locked the door so the Steve Martin couldn't get in, and told the cabbie to take him down to the airport. So he got the cab because he was an asshole. And so, but one of my favorite and the funniest movies ever. That was a great movie. So that's an example right there. But so I guess what I'm saying is if you feel like you're being pushed around, if you're targeted and you're treated with disrespect, and you're not getting ahead in life, it's because you're too nice and you need to be a New York asshole. Some other examples of how to be a New York asshole that I learned pretty quickly, after my little experience out there in Virginia, was I later went to London. I went to the UK and had the same experience there as I related in the story about the opening scene of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, where I'm there in the middle of London trying to get a cab, and so I'm there waiting at the cab stand, where the cab drivers would come up, and then they'd flip a U-turn through this intersection to come back around, and then pick up people waiting there. Customers waiting there to be picked up, to be driven wherever. And so like one or two of those, it's like I got there, and then people who got there after me were pulling that crap of the cab would drive up, and then they'd run in front of me and jump in the cab. They were all aggressive and crap. And so after about one or two times of that, other people being London assholes, and getting the cabs that I wanted, I was like, okay, fuck this noise. And see, I'll figure out, another way to solve this problem. Now I'm going to be a New York asshole or a London asshole, whatever. They're the same thing, I think. So I decided, well, I looked around and I noticed that when I was standing there at the cab stand where the cabs would pull up to pick up customers, that to my right, just like a little bit to my right, was the intersection where all the cabs who had dropped people off or who that were available and were coming back to the cab stand, they would come up to this intersection, and usually it'd be a red light. So if there was a red light, like a whole line of cabs would come up to the intersection and they would stop for the red light, and then when it was green they would come up and then flip a U-turn and then come back around to pick people up at the cab stand. So I got this idea, okay, to hell with playing this game, now I'm going to cheat. So I decided that I was going to go over to the intersection there where I noticed that this was happening, and in the middle of the road, because it was like, you know, like a Broadway, you know, it was like road going one way and road going the other way, and in the middle was like a median that you could stand on. You weren't really supposed to, but and very heavy traffic. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go over and I'm going to stand on that median right there next to the red light, right in the middle of the intersection, and I'm going to wait. And as soon as that light turns red, the first cab that comes up that I see that it's available, that's stopped in traffic, I'm just going to go over there and I'm going to right in the middle of the traffic. So that's what I did. I went over there, you know, and the people over the cab stand were looking at me like I was crazy, like, what's this, you know, crazy American doing? And, you know, crazy tourist. So I go over there and I stand right in the middle of the intersection with my luggage and all that. And so they come up, the light turns red, a bunch of cars pull up, and then I see a cab there, and I run up to the cab. You know, it was only like 3 or 4 feet away from me, but I didn't want some other, you know, like Del Griffith, you know, character coming up and stealing the cab from me again. And Del Griffith is the guy played by John Candy in the movie. So I run up. Hey, are you available to take me to the I forget what hotel it was, and then I wanted to later after that have him take me to the British Museum. So he's like, sure, and you know, but he was kind of surprised, probably because nobody had ever done that before. So I jump in the cab, throw my luggage in, get in there, and my mom was with me at the time. So as soon as I did that, she came over, and she gets in the cab, and they were all kind of laughing and stuff. And so as we're pulling away, the cab driver says, "Oh, you must have been to London before. You must be from here. Where are you from?" And I said, "Oh, I'm from the United States." And I said, when he asked me if I'd been to London before, I was like, "No, why?" And he's like, "Well, you know, you came up with the idea of, you know, getting a cab before I even come up to the cab stand." And so I was like, "Oh no, I've never been to London before now, but I have been in New York." And then he's like, "Oh, I see." So he was laughing and all that. And but I have noticed, you know, and then I got where I needed to go and had no problems after that. But I have noticed that the people who get ahead in this life are the assholes. Not saying to be an asshole to everybody or to just be like an aggressive, narcissistic and just mean-spirited jerk to people, you know, especially innocent people. Don't be like that. However, you know, when it comes to competition and dog-eat-dog type stuff, you know, and especially if you initially, and this is the way I do, I'm initially polite and kind and nice to people. Initially. But then I wait and see, I wait and see how they respond to that. If they respond with kindness and niceness and, courtesy, then I continue to do that. But if they respond with contempt, with disrespect, they show that they think that my kindness is a sign of weakness and that I'm I'm a target that can be taken advantage of, then that's when I immediately flip the switch and I become a New York asshole. And I've noticed that the more I do that, the more assertive I am, the more aggressive I am when necessary, the more I act like my particular interests and my goals are, matter and are important, the more successful I get with whatever I try to do. I'll just say one other little story and then I'm going to get off of here. And this was years and years and years prior to all that. But it took me decades to finally, at the time I was still young, still really young, and by young I mean a teenager. And I hadn't really gotten it, really had it sink in yet. Because when I was a kid, I was born into, a nominally Catholic family. Basically, I went to Catholic school until the 6th grade. Yeah, the 6th grade. Actually, I switched over to public school in the 6th grade. And, I was taken to Mass every Sunday, the whole bit, and then during the week I had to, every day during the week we had Mass as one of our periods during the school day. So we had no choice, which was fine actually, especially being a Catholic school. And the education there at the Catholic school was fantastic in terms of academics and all that. No comparison to the public school system. The private school education was light years ahead. Probably still is, even more so. But so I was taught as a kid, from like 4 or 5 years old, to be nice, turn the other cheek, love your enemies, pray for those who abuse you, and, forgive everybody, and put everybody else first, be self-sacrificing and all that. And so I spent quite a few years, because of that early indoctrination, being taught to be nice, and also there's a lot of shaming and guilt tripping when it comes to the Catholic Church, the Catholic faith and all that. You're a sinner, you need to be saved, and you need to constantly be repentant and saying sorry, and just the whole bit. Basically taught to be a doormat, and a victim. And so when I was a kid, I was severely physically abused, violence, being beat on by my cousins and others and all that. Not because I couldn't fight back, because I'm a big guy actually, but because I was nice, because I was indoctrinated into that. I was taught to turn the other cheek. There were some times in my childhood when I actually turned the other cheek and then I got hit again. My gentleness and kindness was not taken as a, good thing. It was taken as a sign of weakness. But I wasn't weak. It was just, I was doing what I was taught. And so one day, over at my cousin's house, we were in the basement, and it became for years, let's beat on and pick on Steve and bully Steve, all my cousins and stuff. They were extremely disrespectful, mentally and verbally abusive, as well as physically, where they'd beat on me and shit. And I had gotten into martial arts at the time. Taekwondo, actually. Yeah, I had been in Taekwondo for a little while. And so one day I got sick and tired of the beatings and the disrespect. And so I just lashed out and I started punching and kicking anybody who was within range. And yeah, I was fighting 5 of them all at once. And I was just in a rage, and I didn't care if I got hit, didn't care if I, what happened. I was just in a rage because I had years of pent-up anger and frustration. Got sick and tired of being beat on. So I started fighting back. I mean, just punching, kicking, grabbing whatever was closest by to beat the snot out of whoever was within range. And so basically I won the fight, and I almost killed one of my cousins because I hit him and he almost hit the back of his head on one of the corners of the dresser in my other cousin's room. We were over at two of my, my cousin's house, Amy and Rob's house. And my other cousins were there. And so we were down in the basement, and we were fighting in the basement. I mean, it was a fist fight. But I was the one who was doing all the hitting, because they did not expect that. And so Rob jumped in the way to grab Joe to keep him from hitting the back of his head on the dresser, because I punched him in the face. And immediately they're like, okay, stop. They're like all bloody and messed up and crap. And Rob was like, you could have just killed him. And I'm like, I was angry. I was just seeing nothing but red. Well, to make a very long story short, it's already been half an hour. I didn't think I had that much to say about this. But to make a very long story short, and to wrap this up, the beatings and the disrespect and the picking stopped after that. After I had started learning how to fight and started fighting back and showed them that I could by beating the snot out of them, the disrespect and the beatings stopped. The bullying stopped. So, the moral of the story is that sometimes you've got to be a New York asshole. When you've got to be rude, you've got to hit back, you've got to retaliate, you've got to defend yourself, stand up for yourself. Don't take shit from people. Don't be too kind. Be nice and courteous to the people who deserve it. But to the people who don't, be a New York asshole. And your life will get so much better. And if you look around you and you see people who are successful in business or otherwise, they can be professional and courteous, but I guarantee you that they're not nice. Nice is not the same thing as good. Nice equals doormat, victim, pushover, etc., etc. Easy mark, easy target. Good means that you're good-hearted and you treat people the way you want to be treated. But nice means that you turn the other cheek. You allow people to walk on you and take advantage of you and screw you over. Be good, but don't be too nice. Be a New York asshole. And with that, I will say to everybody I don't like, Darwin be with you, and to everybody else, live long and prosper. Oh, and by the way, Happy New Year to everybody, in case I don't see you again before then.